Hey there, internet. So, yeah, this ain't a joking matter. Because Oregon is getting into the whole transing of kids thing like some of the other states. So, I ran across this on Newsmax, and a lot of people, especially liberals, don't consider Newsmax an accurate source. But I can do one better. And just get my news from Newsmax. Because as always promised, I come with receipts. I went and got the source material from the state of Oregon. Their own materials. And the links I'm going to have in the description below is the main piece we're going to talk about here is support it as a piece from the Oregon Department of Education called Supporting Gender Expansive Students, Guidance for Schools, dated January 5th, 2023. Along with this, I found going through part of the sources from which this spans is the 2020 Oregon Student Health Survey, which of course is, I'm sure, had plenty of inappropriate questions, and did. And then the other sources I'm going to link to will be from a website called Hearthside Medicine, and it basically talks about the rights of young people with regards to what they can consent to in Oregon as young as the age 15, and some stuff about from Oregon.gov. I believe it's from their health department or something similar. The website starts with Oregon.gov. It's a PDF. It says prioritize list guidelines for gender dysphoria frequently asked questions. Talking about a 2014 decision for Health Evidence Review Commission, or HERC, and their prioritized list of health services. And all of these kind of come together with Oregon Department of Education transing kids. So, in the intro, going through this thing, and it's packed with all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to get into everything. I'd be literally reading you 48 pages of sometimes dry material. The intro claims 8% of students are transgender, gender expansive, or questioning. But when you go to the source material, which is at page, and I did not write it down, 22, which is actually like 24 in the PDF, because the PDF includes the cover. When it gets into this agender or transgender stuff, it says sexual orientation, things kids could have claimed. And then it gets into what do you identify as your sex of birth. When I calculated it up, it said 7%, 7.7% for 11th graders. I didn't do the 8th graders. Because the younger you are, the more uncertain you are of who you are. And because there's a reason for the expression young and dumb. But when it gets to sex that you were at birth and how you identify, it gets a whole bunch of this into non-binary, and really some of this just seems like a big fad, because more consistent with terms and with what they talk about in the text of further down in the chart, table 9, it says of people born female, 89.1% consider themselves identify as female, and 10.6 say they're non-binary, and 0.3 say they're male. And then boys, those who are male, but you're either male or female, I don't buy it as non-binary, the numbers are actually much more identifying as male than female. It also lends credence to this idea that maybe a lot of young women are trying to identify something else for other reasons. They actually have a category for intersection. Those are not what most of us are talking about when it comes to the gender issues, because those people are born with 2 X chromosomes and a Y, or 3 X chromosomes and a Y, or some other issues related to genetics, or how their body's physically developed, especially in utero. So none of us are really talking about that. It literally says that with an asterisk for intersex. It refers to people born with any range of sex characteristics that may not fit a doctor's notions of binary male or female bodies. Variations may appear in a person's chromosomes, genitals, internal organs like testes or ovaries. Some are identified at birth, while others may not be discovered until later in life. And that has happened, but it is a very tiny number. That in the Oregon Health Survey, it surveyed roughly 6 11th graders, period, and 21 8th graders. So a very tiny number for even a state the size of Oregon. But then in the text on the gender identity in this survey, it says fewer than 2% identify as transgender or not gender nonconforming. Less than 2% are unsure of their identity, while fewer than 1% did not know what the question was asking. Fewer than 2% said something else fits better, with a whole bunch of different things, gender neutral and demi-fluids and questionnaires and neopronouns and technically male but identify as either human. And it says at the bottom, a few said this was an inappropriate question, and almost every one of those kids, I'm going to say, it was right on top of it, because young people cannot be making these decisions, especially to make permanent life-altering changes. So moving right into the rest of it, it's always like section 1, section 2, and everything is like BII, and how they do their sections. It's not like 1.1.6, 1.2.2 type thing. They got their own weird way of laying this out. But when you get into past the intro that claimed a higher amount was get into names and pronouns. And it says, of course, it gives an example of expecting others to, when they're giving an example of what administration might send out when somebody comes in with their parents and says, our son John's now Alicia and will be going by they, them, and expecting includes expecting others to use the correct pronouns. So if you have a son or daughter who says, hey, my dad has told me, my mom has told me, there are only 2 genders, I'm not playing this 57 genders game, tough. They're going to come down on them. But in B1.1, self-expression, on page 9, it includes the words in a paragraph. So open up these links so you can follow along. One day I'll get from using my phone into a real camera and microphone and get where I can learn how to just screen share this for you. It says, find it, here it is. The First Amendment protects the rights of students' freedom of expression. Actions such as threatening to out students to their families, overlooking bullying, forcing students to wear clothing inconsistent with gender identity, and so on, may cause harm to gender expansive students and pose a legal risk to school districts. So right there, they start off with, we're not going to tell the parents that your son or daughter has come and says your son says he's a girl, or your daughter says she's a boy. They're already starting with early into this with not telling parents, and that is probably other than leading into later where I will bring up about things that could be permanent. It's the undermining of the parents, and that is something you just can't have. And then later in that in section 1D, and this is a direct paragraph quote, students who are not publicly asserting their authentic gender identity may have privacy concerns about students, school staff, community members, or their families finding out before they are ready to share their identity more widely. Parent or family support is the goal when supporting gender-expansive students, but may not be possible in all situations. So the school is going to say, yes, John, you can now be Sally, and it's okay that we won't tell your parents. Then John goes home and says, oh yeah, I'm John. And parents don't know that he's really going by Sally and doesn't know all the other issues. Schools should refer to their current policies when there may be a safety concern. To the extent possible, schools should refrain from revealing information about students' gender identity, even to parents, caregivers, or other administrators without permission from the student. And this is getting into issues like bullying and whatnot. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had a child that came and decided that they were LGBTQ, I might try to guide them differently, because young people always don't realize that. And we have had an explosion of young people saying they're these things. But I want to know if they're being bullied. Period. Even if I don't approve of whatever's led to it. You can't parent if you don't know about that. You go to and then in section 1D, it gets into this further. And my note says just to go right there and skip copying. So we go to 1D, and it says student privacy is what it says. For many gender-expansive students, the process of coming out is a very personal experience. Some gender-expansive students will be very open and public about their gender-expansive identities, while some will not share their identities with anyone during their primary and secondary educational experiences. Fine. Probably makes their life less complicated, honestly. Research shows that family and community support is positively correlated with lower rates of suicidality and positive mental health. Maybe if you find out what the cause of it is, but Oregon doesn't support that. But no student should be forced to come out before anyone is really ready. Regardless of how public a student chooses to be with their gender identity, student autonomy and privacy are of the utmost concern. It's common students to confide in a few friends, family members, or trusted adults. Lost my place. Before sharing this identity more publicly, if a student discloses gender identity, where was I? No, that's not where I was looking for. 1D. Oh, excuse me. 1DI. This is where it was. Under 1DI, Oregon's laws on school harassment, intimidation, and bullying require students to adopt policies on parental notification when a student either experiences or commits an act of harassment, intimidation, or bullying. This notification is intended to provide support to all students involved, both students who engage in this and students who experience harassment or bullying. However, if a gender-expansive student is not yet out to their parent or caregiver and is being bullied or harassed about their gender identity, they may be concerned about being outed during this required notification. And then it says schools should review their existing policies to handle these notifications carefully. Carson's law requires that notifications must occur with involvement and consideration of needs and concerns of the student who is subjected to an act of harassment, intimidation, or bullying, or an act of cyberbullying. The law allows schools to opt out of parental notification in the following circumstances. It is not required if the school official reasonably believes notification could endanger the student who is subjected to an act of harassment, intimidation, or bullying, or an act of cyberbullying if the following occurred. The student was subjected to an act of harassment, intimidation, or bullying, or cyberbullying, requests the notification not be provided to the student's parents or guardians. Again, undermining the parent, and you can't parent if you don't know your child has an issue. Either because maybe you want to support their transition, or because you want to guide them in a different direction, but you can't know if they're being bullied. You can't be monitoring their Facebook for that kind of stuff. You can't be aware that your child is having problems. That's not good. You can't be undermining them. School official determines the notification is not in the best interest of the student who is subjected to an act of harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying. And The school official informs the student that federal law may require the student's parents or guardians to have access to their education record, including any request made as provided by the subparagraph. And then it says, wanting to talk about sending them to another supportive adult they can rely on throughout the school's response process, such as a school counselor, psychologist, or other licensed school-based mental health professional, advocate, teacher, or administrator. And then it says if a student decides that they must notify a parent or caregiver against the student's wishes, the student should be careful to consider the extent to which the student's gender identity needs to be revealed in the notification. How about telling them why? This whole thing, you're not going to tell the parents because we don't want to out them. You don't want to tell the parents because we don't want them to know about the bullying because you're afraid for them. Parents love their kids, okay? Even when they don't approve. In 99% of cases. And to tell somebody we're going to undermine you is not right. So in those sections right there, this undermines the parents. Period. So then we get into some issues of medical transition in schools. And my notes just send me straight to, instead of cutting and pasting, we go to section 1E in this same document, the supporting gender students in schools. E, gender affirming care in schools. Now remember, in Oregon, according to Hearthside Medicine, there are examples of things that they've seen. It includes in lists of, a teen wanting to start antidepressants, but the parents refusing. Young adult wanting birth control, but is too afraid to tell their parents. That's wrong. Parents need to be a part of those issues. You're undermining their values. Wanting the HPV vaccine, being seen for stomach cramps, which ends up being pregnant, doesn't want the parents to know. The parents need to find out. Okay? I have a friend who's generally pro-choice, pro-abortion. I say pro-choice. She's probably more traditionally pro-choice, but even she wants, if her daughter became pregnant, she wants to be a part of that daughter's decision to make sure she has her head screwed on straight, because you can't undo an abortion. And then it says a 15-year-old assigned male at birth who identifies as female and wants to start testosterone blocking medications and estrogen. A 15-year-old. I checked Oregon law. You can't get a tattoo in Oregon without parental consent. And in Portland, you can't even get a tattoo unless you're 21. I actually looked that up to make sure that Oregon was the same as Washington. You're going to let them sterilize themselves with cross-sex hormones permanently, but you're not going to let them get a tattoo. Just think about that. So we go over to the main document we're talking about tonight, and it says gender-affirming care is a form of supporting care that may include medical, surgical, mental health, or non-medical services. Some services are more likely to occur in schools as outlined through this document. Social affirmation through gender marker name, pronoun use, access to facilities, athletics, programs, and activities, and gender-inclusive health education, and mental health services and support. While other services are more likely to occur within a school-based health center or community health clinic, and it gives examples of access to puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and gender-affirming surgeries. So your kid goes to some sort of a community-based health place, Planned Parenthood, whatever, because they're going in that direction as I understand it, or some community-based health center where someone can write them a prescription, write your kid a prescription for estrogen, and you don't even know that your 15-year-old is on estrogen now. Without your knowledge, without your consent, your 15-year-old who can't get a tattoo, can't get a driver's license, the Democrats don't want them to own a gun until they're 21, can't drink until they're 21, can't smoke until they're 18, we're going to give them life-altering changes to their bodies at 15. And this is right in the school documentation. At from Oregon.gov, Oregon Department of Education / students and family, but and so on. The whole thing. The link was in there. If you haven't opened it up yet, you need to. For gender-expansive children and adolescents, early access to gender-affirming care is crucial for overall health and well-being, as it allows the child or adolescent to focus on social transitions and increase confidence when navigating the healthcare and education. Research demonstrates that gender-affirming care improves mental health and well-being of expansive children and adolescents. And then in the second paragraph, it allows you to provide personal counseling and whatnot, but then it says mental health care and social health professionals who work in schools are reminded that Oregon law prohibits conversion therapy as defined for any youth under the age of 18. Conversion therapy has been denounced as harmful by dozens of healthcare organizations, so you can't even ask, why do you feel this way? I was listening to Tim Poole today, and he's talking about the book Genderqueer, and I don't know if I'm going to take the time to read that thing, but when they're talking about the abuse the author went through, it's very obvious how this person got to feel this way. And in the third paragraph of the same section, it talks about different the different services schools can be, school-based mental health and social health professionals, and then involving GSAs, and there they call them Gender and Sexuality Alliance, when I always knew them as Gay Straight Alliances, so I guess they've changed that one on us, and talks about how they could set up a community closet for people that can't access makeup, binders, clothing, packers, and menstrual products. And if you're a biological female thinking you're a boy, you should be able to get menstrual products, but in Oregon actually requires that schools put dispensers in all the bathrooms anyway. If you're male, you don't need them. And there was another spot in here, and I'm not finding it, where it was where was it? There's a spot in here where we talked about, talked about how engaging in the hormones and whatnot was good for people with being able to move into these same areas. And now I'm not finding it. I neglected to mark that. But it does in section 1FV, student health records. Let's see, where was it? Talk about student nurses dispensing various drugs to students for gender affirming care. And then in facilities access, maybe it was HRC. That's right, it was the HRC document. Toward the end of the HRC document, it brought the criteria for Oregon health plan members to qualify for services under gender dysphoria, and they have to have sex reassignment surgeries included for patients who are sufficiently physically fit and meet eligibility criteria to qualify for surgery. patient must have persistent, well-documented gender dysphoria, have completed 12 months of continuous hormone therapy as appropriate to the member's gender goals under the hormones not clinically indicated for the individual, and have completed 12 months living in the gender role congruent with the gender capacity to make a fully informed decision and give consent. Remember, a 15-year-old can give consent in Oregon. Have any significant medical or mental health concerns reasonably well controlled, and then have their qualifiers. Can minors receive services for gender dysphoria, and why? They need parental consent. The age of medical consent varies by state. Oregon law, which applies to both Medicaid and non-Medicaid Oregonian states, that medical consent is age 15. They are not required to provide any medical services to a minor, but in most cases will encourage, in some cases require, family engagement. In addition, guidelines contain numerous safeguards to ensure that candidates are appropriate for surgery, and medically it is safer and easier to conduct surgery earlier, before secondary sex characteristics have fully developed. So this is where you get into the surgery on kids. Right here, Oregon government guidelines. I just had to remember the right document. Oregon Health Authority. That's where they come out and say it. So your kid can go to the community health center or stuff, get started on their hormones, and if they're on the Oregon Health Plan, they can get themselves chopped up without your permission. Near as I can tell on this. Now, maybe there's something I'm not catching there. Now, granted, you have to find a doctor willing to do it, but there are doctors willing to perform surgeries on minors. Boston Medical, everyone threw a fit over Matt Walsh drawing attention to him, and libs of TikTok drawing attention to him. But people calling them and calling the Vanderbilt facility in Tennessee, and they had on their website videos about doing gender reassignments on children. And then last couple of things, when it talks about what we used to call, when I was in school, human growth and development, that's what the official name was, and all us kids called it sex ed. There's stuff in there about how to handle trans kids, and they're even talking about teaching about gender identity, and allows non-binary people to participate in athletics of either sex, so they could compete with girls soccer in the fall and boys swimming in the winter. They can switch back and forth between them if they identify as non-binary. And it doesn't say anything about having to be on hormones or puberty blockers or any of that. So you could have a male athlete with all the male benefits just say, I identify as non-binary, and go crush all the girls' chances in sports. And when I was wrestling, we had a girl on the team. She tried hard, and this was something I was going to research more for the women in athletics. But even I figured it out, did the math of the muscle mass a male loses compared to what they had before for a man compared to a woman. Somebody in the weight class I was at could have gone would have just dropped enough muscle mass alone to drop down to her weight class. Still would have had more muscle than her, because women are meant to have more body fat. They can't go down to the same body fat percentage in a healthy manner that a man can. So all of this is in the Oregon Department of Education document, and it is titled Supporting Gender Expansive Students. This isn't being made up by me. The documents will be linked to the different angles and ways this all stacks together. You can look it for yourself. And this is something that should bother all students, or all parents. It should bother the students too, but it should definitely bother the parents, because they're undermining the parents, and they're setting your kids off on a path that could lead them to worse situations leading down. If you're not mature enough to get a tattoo, you're not mature enough to be altering your body in other permanent ways. They'll let you get surgery on your body for gender affirming care. But even when I looked up the laws on tattooing in Oregon, there's some of those same parts, they won't let you pierce them. And that's less permanent. So, this is something, if you live in Oregon, you know somebody that lives in Oregon, pass it on to them. Kind of long, but it's kind of important. So, until then, remember, like, share, subscribe, and until then, this is Pat. Pronouns master, masters, master, self, for all of you people that think this is a good idea. You all take care.